What if the Cuban Missile Crisis had led to nuclear war? The Cuban Missile Crisis of October 1962 was the most dangerous moment in human history, a time when the world teetered on the edge of nuclear annihilation. Imagine for a moment, what if that fine line had been crossed? What if one wrong decision, one misunderstood signal, or one moment of hesitation had turned this Cold War standoff into a catastrophic war? In today's video, we explore this harrowing what-if. We'll dive into the potential short-term and long-term impacts, the possibility of World War III, how humanity might have adapted in a post-apocalyptic world, and what our present might look like today. Stick around until the end. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this haunting alternate reality. And if you enjoy exploring what-ifs and thought-provoking scenarios, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. To understand the gravity of this scenario, we need to revisit the pivotal days in October 1962. At the time, the Soviet Union had placed nuclear missiles in Cuba, just 90 miles from the US mainland, as a counter to American missiles stationed in Turkey. For 13 tense days, US President John F. Kennedy and Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev inched closer to mutual destruction. The world held its breath as US reconnaissance planes captured images of missile sites in Cuba, and naval blockades and military alerts raised tensions to a boiling point. But now let's imagine a different turn of events. What if a local commander had misinterpreted an order? What if the Soviets had refused to remove their missiles? Or worse, what if the US had launched a preemptive strike? This is where history could have unraveled into chaos. Had this escalation occurred, the short-term consequences would have been unfathomable. Nuclear war in 1962 would have resulted in the immediate destruction of major cities in both the US and the Soviet Union. Targets like Washington, D.C., New York City, Moscow, and Leningrad would have been reduced to radioactive ruins. Millions of innocent civilians would have perished within moments, while countless more would face death from radiation exposure in the days to come. The devastation wouldn't have been confined to these two superpowers. Fallout would have spread across the globe, contaminating air, water, and soil. Global food chains would instantly collapse as crops succumb to radioactive poisoning. Most terrifying of all, this conflict could have sparked World War III. Allies would have quickly joined the fray. Countries like the United Kingdom, France, and even China might have been pulled into the chaos, escalating the disaster into a truly global war. The military clashes and nuclear exchanges would dismantle what was left of civilized society, plunging the world into darkness. After the initial catastrophe, what kind of world would survivors face? The long-term impacts of nuclear war would have shaped the course of human history in unimaginable ways. The radioactive fallout would poison the earth for decades, rendering entire regions uninhabitable. Survivors would have faced a grim reality: widespread famine due to scorched agricultural land, rampant diseases caused by radiation poisoning, and a breakdown in social order. Governments may have collapsed, leading to a rise in smaller authoritarian regimes controlling fragments of territory with brutal force. The global power structure, with the US and USSR at its helm, likely would have crumbled, paving the way for an entirely new balance of power. Technological progress may have stagnated in this cataclysmic aftermath. With humanity focused on survival, advancements in science, medicine, and innovation would have taken a back seat. Instead, humanity might have been forced into a grim version of the Dark Ages, clawing its way out of a devastated world. And what about our culture, our stories and art? It's likely that, as a species, humanity's collective psyche would have been deeply scarred. Themes of loss, survival, and fear might dominate the way we express ourselves in literature, film, and music. Fast-forwarding to today, what would this alternate timeline look like? For one, the global population would likely be a fraction of our current numbers. Entire continents could be sparsely populated, depending on how severely they were affected by radiation and famine. The natural environment would also look very different. Radiation hotspots would mark previously vibrant cities and fertile lands. Certain plants and animals may have mutated or gone extinct due to radiation exposure, irreversibly altering ecosystems. Politically, Imagine a world where smaller authoritarian factions control isolated regions. The once mighty United States and Soviet Union might exist only as remnants, their political and military power shattered beyond repair. Instead of globalized trade and economic cooperation, society might rely on hyperlocal production and barter economies. Day-to-day life might be guided by one priority: survival. Without modern medicine, survival rates from illnesses and injuries could plummet. Communities would likely be tight-knit but suspicious of outsiders, driven by fear of limited resources. Education and progress might be narrowly focused on practical skills like farming, building shelters, or rudimentary technology. Thankfully, the Cuban Missile Crisis ended with a diplomatic resolution, reminding us of the power of diplomacy and communication even in the direst of circumstances. This historical what-if serves as a stark reminder of just how fragile peace really is. One misstep could have spelled the end of life as we know it. Since the crisis, steps have been taken to prevent a similar event, including disarmament treaties like the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and greater communication channels between nuclear powers. Yet even in today's world, where tensions still flare between nations with nuclear capabilities, the specter of devastation looms overhead. As we explore this haunting alternate scenario, it's worth asking ourselves, are we doing enough to ensure that history doesn't repeat itself? Do modern developments in politics and weaponry make such an outcome more likely in the future? Now it's over to you. What do you think the world would have looked like had the Cuban Missile Crisis escalated into nuclear war? How do you imagine humanity might have adapted, or not, in the face of such overwhelming destruction? Would we have rebuilt, or would we still be struggling centuries later? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. This is a conversation worth having, not just to exercise our imaginations, but to understand the importance of avoiding such calamities in our real timeline. If you enjoyed diving into this chilling what-if scenario, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking content like this. Your support helps us keep exploring history's biggest mysteries and alternate possibilities. See you in the next video.